So today I'm going to be doing a Geoffrey Eugenides double bill, and I'm going to be talking about the Virgin Suicides and Middlesex. Now, I have never read a single page of Geoffrey Eugenides' work, but I thought I would start with his top hitters, and the Virgin Suicides and Middlesex, from what I can tell, are considered to be his best novels. So let's start with the much shorter of the two novels, his debut release in 1993, The Virgin Suicides. The Virgin Suicides revolves around the tragic story of the Lisbon sisters. 5 teenage girls living in a suburban neighbourhood. The book is narrated by a group of neighbourhood boys who become obsessed with the Lisbon sisters. The Lisbon sisters, living under very strict parenting, slowly succumb to despair and eventually each take their own lives. The narrative explores the impact of these events on the community, the complex dynamics within the Lisbon family, and the mysteries surrounding the sisters' suicides. The novel is an exploration of adolescence, societal expectations, and the stifling conformity of parental figures. So what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. I really liked the narrative style. The whole first-person plural narrative really drew me into the mindset of the neighbourhood boys. I also really liked the unreliability of our narrators, the mix between fact and then what could be being made up in the neighbourhood boys' imaginations. I just enjoyed that kind of second guessing, and I felt like that second guessing really added to the kind of style and mystery of this novel. And jumping off of the back of that, I really enjoyed the mysterious atmosphere that was created in this novel. It is both haunting, but at the same time captures a time period really well. I really enjoyed the novel's exploration of femininity. Eugenides subtly comments upon the societal expectation and pressures placed upon women in the 70s. And finally, and this point cannot be stressed enough, I absolutely loved, and I mean loved, the writing style. Eugenides' lyrical prose and attention to detail just really brought the world to life, and it is just buttery smooth. I flowed through this novel in like a sort of dreamlike trance. It just captured me. I mean, I bought a ticket, I got on board, and my God, it was a smooth ride. What didn't I like? Now, my dislikes could be considered very light spoilers. I don't think what I'm about to say will ruin the novel for you, but who knows when it comes to spoilers. So I'm going to put a timestamp up here. Please skip to that if you want to miss any of the things that I might consider spoilers. So I'm going to have to contradict myself slightly with my dislikes, because as much as I enjoyed the style of this novel, the style of the novel does lead to a few things that, I don't know, I just didn't think were that great. Now, my first dislike would be because of how distanced we are from the Lisbon sisters due to who our narrators are, I never ever felt that close to them. They were mysterious just like the boys found them to be, and you are placed within their mindset. That is the purpose of the novel. But for me, because of that distancing, I had no sort of emotional impact to any of the things that happened. So when the suicides eventually happened, I cared, but I didn't care that much. There was no kind of, it didn't hit me at all. It didn't really resonate with me because of how distanced we are. And I know that might not be a point of the novel. It wants us to be distanced. It wants them to seem like these mysterious figures. It wants to be all this mystery wrapped around them. But because it puts so much emphasis on the Lisbon sisters, I would expect to have a little bit more of a kind of a emotional reaction to them dying, to them killing themselves. And I really didn't. And my second dislike is because of the chosen style. There are a lot of questions that are left unanswered. The novel is inviting the reader to ruminate, to think, to dissect the mysteries that are presented us within the story, to question and think about how we could fill in the gaps with the questions we don't have answers for. However, the older I get, the more I find that device quite lazy. I know in life, in your life, in my life, there are lots of questions that will go unanswered, lots of things that we just won't have the answers to, and that maybe this novel is providing that kind of realism for the reader. I do get that. But within fiction, within the fiction that I enjoy, there are various ways to handle that device. And upon reading this novel, I imagine in 1993, it really worked. But me reading it in 2024, I don't know, it just didn't quite. I felt like it could have pushed in some areas a little bit more, just a tiny bit more clarification. I just felt like, oh, well, it's very easy to kind of write a mystery and be like, you figure it out, you fill in the gaps. So yeah, that element I didn't quite like either. And my final dislike, and it is directly bouncing off the back of my last comment, because of course things go unanswered. So our ending, the ending of the novel, is deliberately ambiguous. You know, we just have to figure out for ourselves what caused the fate of the Lisbon sisters, what might have happened, what was happening behind closed doors. And again, there are various ways to handle this type of ending. And I think the novel does an all right job of it, but I don't know. I think it's just my age. I just got to that point and I just went, I think I'm a bit tired of this trope. But maybe back in 1993, this was something fresh. I doubt it was, but do you know what I mean? Maybe back in 1993, that was what readers were really craving in that moment. But for me, yeah, it just doesn't do too much for me anymore. Overall, I thought this novel was very good, so I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. But I'm going to have to tell you, it is Geoffrey Eugenides' writing, his writing style, his ability to compose a sentence that is just utterly fantastic. I got through this book so quickly because of how wonderful his writing is. So it's the writing style alone that is bolstering this book up for me. I would recommend this book to absolutely everybody for the writing style alone. I can guarantee once you get to the halfway point, even if you're not totally digging the story, or even if you're not totally digging the way the story's being told, you will just fall in love with the writing, because it is, as I've already said, buttery smooth. Right, moving on, and next up we have Middlesex, a multi-generational epic. And if you have been watching this channel for a while, you will know that, oh boy, I love me a multi-generational epic. The story begins with the grandparents, Lefty and Desdemona. They are Greek immigrants who settle in Detroit. We then follow Milton, one of Lefty and Desdemona's children, who eventually goes on to marry Tessie. The narrative then unfolds as we begin to follow Callie, who is later known in the novel as Cal. Cal is born intersex with both male and female genitalia. The novel explores Cal's journey of self-discovery, starting with Cal's realization that he is somewhat different. Cal, who at the time went by Callie for the first 14 years of his life, but at that time her life, did not know they were intersex. Callie didn't know she was intersex until she was around 14 years old. Callie undergoes medical interventions and then finds out that she is intersex and realizes that she has always identified as a man. It was inside her, she knew, and therefore she decides to go for the rest of her life to identify to become a man and to identify as Cal. The narrative navigates Cal's struggles with identity, gender, and societal expectations, offering insight into the complexities of Cal's intersex journey, giving the reader insight into Cal's intersex experiences. But this really isn't just a novel about Cal. This is a novel about the family and the secrets that the family hold. As already mentioned, this is a multi-generational epic. It is being narrated by Cal at 40 years old, and he is diving all the way back into the history of his grandparents when his grandparents were in their 20s. We have a fair few historical events pop up within this novel, one of them being the Detroit race riots. The novel weaves together both the personal and the societal, addressing themes such as cultural identity, immigration, and the American dream. Throughout the novel, we explore the clash between cultural expectations and personal desires, particularly within the context of the Greek-American experience. Middlesex has just got so much going on. It is both historical fiction, family saga, and also a coming-of-age novel. So, what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked, and oh boy, this is going to be an absolute gush fest with a couple of caveats. I just loved, and I mean loved, how epic this was. I mean, I was already in because I love multi-generational novels. I love getting to know bits of history whilst also getting to know a family and the family members extremely well. And the characters are all brought to life so well. You just live, you breathe with them, you go through their struggles, and I just really enjoy that. So yeah, the whole epicness, how layered this novel was, everything it's covering, the family, I absolutely loved all of it. I love the exploration of Cal's journey, of societal expectations and what his culture, his family place upon him, and his experiences and how they are changed because of what society is telling him is normal. I absolutely loved how rooted this novel is in the Greek-American experience. It really dives into those cultural nuances and the impact of immigration on one's identity. I really loved the social commentary at play with topics like race, immigration, identity, gender. It covers a lot. And for the most part, I think it covers most of those themes really well, whilst keeping the narrative building, the pace of the novel moving. It's doing a lot of things, some better than others, but it is doing a lot of things, and it's doing them well, whilst also giving us fantastic characters and a wonderful story that builds and moves really nicely. I loved the non-linear narrative, how he kept jumping back and forwards, back to Cal at 40 years old, and then back to his grandparents, and then moving backwards and forwards. It creates this kind of sort of mosaic of interconnected stories all the way through. For the most part, it tries to follow a kind of linear timeline, but we do keep jumping in and out, and I thought that device worked really well. Despite the novel's very serious themes, there is also loads and loads and loads of humour and wit within this novel. I was laughing my arse off, but I was also crying. It's got it all, everybody. I also really loved Cal's narrative voice. It was so unique and distinctive. You just kind of felt so close to him as he was telling us his story. Yeah, I just thought Eugenides captured that really well. And finally, and it's the same final like that I had with the Virgin Suicides, Jeffrey Eugenides' writing is absolutely fantastic. It is so my cup of tea. I can't stress it enough. I have fallen in love with Jeffrey Eugenides' writing. Now, I don't know, he's done like The Marriage Plot, I think is another one, and then he's got books of short stories, and there is a clear distinction in style between the Virgin Suicides and this novel. But yeah, his writing is absolutely 100% up my street. It is brilliant. What didn't I like? Again, like the Virgin Suicides, I don't think I can talk about my dislikes without giving you very light spoilers. So again, here's a little timestamp. Skip to there if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever. But yeah, I think they're quite light spoilers. I don't think what I say is going to ruin the novel for you, but again, people are all a bit different, and I think this novel is quite nice going in not knowing that much, even though it was, released in the early 2000s, so it's been around a while. But yeah, feel free to skip. I'll put it up again. Bam! Feel free to skip to then if you don't want to know anything. Okay, so this novel is very much saying that the reason, and this is the spoiler, the reason Cal is intersex is because of the family lineage of incest. And I was a bit like, I don't know much about these things, so I did have to research, do a little bit of research on intersex and different things like that, because this novel was so incredible that I was so wrapped up in it that I started doing a bit of research. But when the novel sort of kind of really says, that that's the reason, or it pushes towards it, I was a bit like, what? Really? I was like, is that true? Is that scientific fact that incest leads towards that happening? So I Googled it, and it's not true. From what I was able to read, I did a Google and I looked at the top 5 hits, and all of the top 5 hits were like, no, that's not a direct link to intersex. That isn't a direct cause. And this book really seems to be pushing in that direction. Now, the parts of the novel that overtly say that is the reason come from Cal's grandmother, who is suffering with Alzheimer's, and she's on her sort of deathbed, and she's saying she's sorry, and that the reason he is the way he is because of the sort of the incest, the family relationships and marriages that have happened throughout the generations of their family, and she's sort of like pushing that point. So you could also, to defend the novel, go, well, those are just the musings of an old lady with Alzheimer's on her deathbed. She doesn't know any better. She just seems to think that's the reason, but the novel isn't actually saying that's the reason. And I think you can defend the novel in that way easily. However, I don't know. It hit me enough that I had to go, really? Is that the cause? I didn't know that. And then have to go away and do my own research. And if the novel's making me do that, then there could be some people who don't want to go do that research and are just going to read this novel and maybe see it as fact. And that's a little bit where I was a bit like, not the biggest fan of that. But that's it for my dislikes. That really is it for my dislikes. And even though I do have issue with those two things, I was able to go away, do a bit of research and educate myself and understand its failings. But it does not stop this book being absolutely incredible. I absolutely adore this book. And that is aside from those two sort of issues that I had, because the writing is so fantastic. The way this family is brought to life, the immigrant experience. There is so much going on in this novel that Cal's being intersex and those kind of things, and the spoilers I've just sort of talked about, they don't really matter because they are just sort of like one part of a greater whole. And the greater whole of this novel, there is just so much to love. Yeah, sorry, I could just gush. I could just be like, the characters, the story, the non-linear narrative, the immigrant experience, the kind of historical sort of events that happen all the way through. Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I'm going to give it 5 stars out of 5. But I do totally understand if you dislike this novel, especially for my reasons that I stated in my dislikes. Jeffrey Eugenides is not intersex. I don't know how much research he did into people who are intersex in creating this novel, and there might be loads and loads of things in here that I'm just missing because of my ignorance that are also, maybe problematic. So I welcome anyone to sort of educate me in the comments below. I always do appreciate that. I don't know if there's still so much going on in this novel aside from those things that I absolutely adore. So I don't know if it would necessarily make me change my review at all, but I would love to be educated and to understand maybe the book's failings a bit more on things I'm just simply missing. So there you go, that's my review, my thoughts on the Virgin Suicides and Middlesex. I think it's pretty obvious by now, but Middlesex is definitely my favourite of the two. We are still only in January, and I can guarantee you 100% Middlesex will make my best books of 2024 list. I have kind of fallen in love with it. I kind of want to start reading it again. That's how much I loved it. So, yeah, have you read either of these books? And if so, did you love them? Did you hate them? Please let me know in the comments below. As always, I really do hope you're well. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.